This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so we've gone through chapters 1 through 5. We're in chapter 6. It's a total of 17 chapters. I want to try to knock out chapter 6 and 7 tonight. Chapter 8 is monitoring and managing Linux processes. I think you need to spend some time on that because this is gonna be with you forever, throughout your career, whether you're doing SRE work or you are a developer or you are a admin or DevOps or whatever. This is just gonna be something that's gonna be with you. Chapter 9, controller services and daemons. Um, we could float through that. That's real easy to get through, right? So what I'll probably do next week, if I get through 6 and 7, I'll skip 8, go to 9 so we can knock that out, and I'll come back to 8. So 6, 7, 9, then 8. 8 ain't that bad, but we'll see. Chapter 10, configuring and securing SSH. We can knock that out. That should take us a good 30 minutes to knock this out. That we shouldn't spend too long on that. So we may be able to do 9 and 10 together. 11 is a long one. So analyzing and storing files. Um, you've seen me go through this before, but um, I don't think it's gonna take. It may take an hour to go through chapter 11. Chapter 12, managing networking. We need to spend some time there. That's someone where we need to spend networking is going to be with you forever. So are log files. Um, in chapter 13, archiving and transfer of files. That should be really straightforward. I don't see too many problems with that. Chapter 14, installing and updating packages, understanding the package manager, whether it's YAM or DNF, when we're looking at package manager. And you can look at the package manager as like you want to install a package on Windows. I think Windows uses a MSI, or if you're in a WSL, with Ubuntu, you'll be using apt or apt-get to install a package. But the yum or DNF is the package manager for Red Hat. And then in chapter 15, accessing Linux file systems. So here, mounting directories and so forth. This is where I think showing you on their system and in on Google Cloud or AWS how to mount drives, how to use LVM, how to create physical drives, or I should say using LVM for the physical, and then the volume group, and then the logical volume. I think that comes into play there, but showing you how you can do it on cloud systems is something a little different, but it's the same concept, but it's just good to show you that. And here they start talking about the portal, Red Hat Insights. I think you don't get into cockpit until the 134 class, and then 17 is an overall summary of pretty much everything. See, man, yeah, comprehensive review and the whole nine, right? So that's what we have for chapters 1 through 16, 17 being a comprehensive review, and then they really pretty much tell you to set up the lab, and then you walk through every single step, right? And the goal here is to try to do it without looking at the solution. So maybe we'll save a class, maybe we'll do like a live training or something like that, where we break off into groups, right? And your group will be responsible for answering these questions like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6, or something like that. Um, and see if you can get it right, and maybe turn it into a contest with some prizes or something like that. Let me keep it fun, right? Um, so yeah, yep, and yep. And so then inside of there are like RHCSA, what's it called? What I want to look up for RHCSA, um, not lab, but study, um, oh, practice test. That's what I want. Couldn't think of the word. Practice exams. Oops, spelled it wrong. So there are some out there from um Sander Van Goot. He has some. As you can see, like I said, you could type in. The only thing is you gotta ask yourself if these answers are correct, right? So that's the only thing about getting with people's stuff. You gotta know if their answer is correct. Create a network connection that using provided values, some IP, some mask, some gateway, some subnet mask, really some IP address, some subnet mask, and a gateway. Use DNS server on a particular interface. And once you go through the networking piece, that will make sense to you. So I'll drop this in the chat, so you could look at it and whatnot. And I need to get my charger before we sit here and I run out of power. Oh, it's not working now. Hold on, it won't let me post in here. Okay, I'll post it in Slack. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. Practice exams. We'll say example. So yeah, there you go. And I think I posted it before, but at least you have an idea. All right. All right. So we started up our section. Let's go back to chapter 6. All right, describing users and groups, or user and group. All right, so the goal of this section is to create, manage, and delete local users. Remember, I said before that you can connect your Linux workstation or desktop or instance to Active Directory or an LDAP server, right? And so basically you would have a way to have this information centralized. Why is that important? So let's look at it this way. Say I had 30 machines to manage, and out of those 30 machines, in those 30 machines, every machine had a username and a password. That would be a nightmare to manage unless you're crafty with it and create you some Ansible playbooks, but still it's still messy, right? So imagine if you could have one place where that system was connected to via Active Directory or LDAP or Open LDAP or IDM, however you want to look at it, and that system that it was connecting to had the usernames and passwords for all 30 of those systems versus you managing the local accounts. So that's what they're showing here, right? We're just doing local accounts, but just you got to think about how do you scale a system like that. Is that even possible? All right. So they say create, manage, and delete local users and groups and administer local password policies. So when you connect your laptop, say you're working on a VPN, and say you had a local account, and then maybe 10 other people had a local account, and then when you went somewhere else and you try to log into that to another machine, well, your local account is your local account to that computer, and then you don't have that same access to or that same, when I should say same access, you don't have access to your files in that on that local account, or your password policy isn't the same. So just something to keep in mind. Then we describe the purpose of the users and the groups on Linux file system. Switch to the super user, create, modify, delete local, define users, define group accounts, lock, and then they got it divided up into sections. So let's get busy. What is a user? Well, you've seen it before, right? Um, when I say who am I am a student, which means that I am a user on this box, which means I have a home directory. Well, how is that found? Later on in the chapter, we'll talk about sudo su dash, right? And I put in my password. But if I do a cat on slash etc password, and I just do a grep for student, because that's where it's located at, the users go in etc password, and the group that's associated with that user goes inside an etc group. So as you can see here, I have a student, and then this X, it used to be the password, but that's where we saw the G shadow file coming at, the etc G shadow. And then we have our UID and our GUID, which we are at 1,000 and 1,000. And later on, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you now, login.def, logins.def defines this for you. So let me type in 1,000, right? So here, when I create a user on the newer Linux systems, the older Linux systems, when I say older, like RHEL 5, maybe even RHEL 6, they used to start at 500. So whenever I create a new user, it'll look to see what's the latest and greatest number that I should be at. But if it's a blank file, if it's a blank system, they're gonna start at 1,000. And then if I look at the group right here, the GID minimum is 1,000. And so you can see there's a min and a max for each one of those groups. And then here's a min and a max for the system user and system group user as well too, right? So we'll get more into that a little later on. I just wanted to show you where this 1,000 actually came from. So let me cat this file again. So then we have what they call it is the common name. So we call it student user. Here is where we define the home directory, this piece right here, right? And then here is where we define the actual shell. Now I want you to notice some things though. Every single column is delimited by a colon, right? You see that? Everything has a colon in between it, right? So if you want to go look at this file, you could go VI password, and you can see that there are uh, there's another user in here called root, and there are other system users in here as well too, as you can see, right? And that's what they were talking about, system users, right? And then if we look at etc group, you can see if I just do a search for student, I just do a slash and then type in student. You can see student is part of the wheel group, but the student also has student and then X and then 1,000, right? So I have a student with permissions of not permissions, but GID of 1,000. And we can double verify this if I do a ls minus L on slash home. You can see I have in my home directory, I have a student. I have a directory named student. It's owned by student as a user, and it's owned by group as a group named student, and we saw that there's a group inside of the as a group in there is student inside of the group file, and then there's inside of etc password there's a user as well too, right? So let's get back to what they're saying. All right, they saying a user, and is everybody with me so far? Before I keep going, I just want to make sure. Right, cool. All right, so it's saying here, a user is used to provide security boundaries between different people and programs. Now, what they're talking about there automatically, you can see here, I have student, user, and group, and then I have a directory called student, and then I have another user called DevOps, and well, I say DevOps is their home directory, and then they have a UID and a GID of DevOps, right? But notice the permissions on these, right? We know that D stands for directory, so we know that DevOps is a directory, and we know that R equals to 4, W equals 2, and we know that X equals 1, for a total of 4 plus 2 plus 7 plus 2, I mean, sorry, 2 plus 1 equals 7, right? So we know that RWX being on for the student, because this is broken down, and let me control C. This is broken down, and I've shown this before. RWX is equal to the user, and then we have 1, 2, 3 for the is equal to the group, and then we have 1, 2, 3, and that's equal to other. And I'll type other right here. And I should go back and type group, so you know. And user. So how this is broken down is um one when you have it's octal. So when we have RWX in the first three, right? That's that goes with the user. And then the next three, we're just gonna highlight the next three. That goes with the actual group, and then the next three goes with the actual goes with other. So in our terms, we refer to it as UGO, right? User group other. And in our case, RWX is with the user, the group has nothing, and other has nothing. In other words, if DevOps, um, even if DevOps was a part of the student group, they wouldn't be able to do anything because the permissions is zero, it's nothing, right? And then the same thing with if student was a part of the DevOps group, they get nothing. But the users get all the permissions in the world to do whatever they wanted to do in this directory here. Does that make sense to everyone? Let me know if that makes sense. Okay. We only got three yeses and 18 people. Four yeses. So I'm assuming only four people understood. Five. All right. We don't want to leave nobody behind. UGO, user group other, right? And the permissions on this particular directory right now is permissions is 700, right? That's where we're at. It's 700. All right. So back over here in the chapter, I probably got ahead, but I wanted you to have that information. So when we go through it, it'll be familiar to you. It says the user have usernames to identify them as human users and make it easier to work. Internally, the system distinguishes user accounts by unique identification number assigned to them. The UID, which we saw for this particular user, was 1000. And another way we could check that, right? We could just do ID dash A on student, right? And it's going to tell me that their UID is 1000, the GID is 1000. It's going to tell me that the UID is 1000 and it's student, and the GID is 1000 and it's student, and it's going to tell me the groups that are associated with it. So we had three ways that we could find out about this user, right? Four ways actually. Let's go over the four. We can do a ls minus l, because normally when we make a user, the user's home directory gets created in slash home and then the username. So if I did a ls minus l on slash home, I see that I have a student and a student for user and a group, right? Because I'm looking right here. And then I have student here as the directory, right? But it doesn't show me that this is part of other groups, but we know how to find that out too, right? We know how to find that out because we can go and look at Etsy group, right? And then again, we can type in student, and you can see student come here. And then if I hit N for next, you can see that, okay, I have a group named student, and student is part of the wheel group as well too. Let's look up DevOps while we're in here. So we can see if I hit N, I don't see anything. It says search hit bottom, continuing at top. So DevOps is only a part of one group. And we can double verify that too if we just did an ID-A on DevOps. And it tells us, hey, we have DevOps who got created. So what I see is student got created first, and then DevOps got created, because the student started off at 1000, just like we had with our UID inside of the logins.dev file. It told us that the student was going to be had the first user was going to have 1000, and then the next user was going to be 1001. So we know that student got created first, and then DevOps got created first. Not necessarily that in could have been that they got created with the um it could have got created with the UID and the GUID with 1001 from command line, but I'm gonna bet that the user student got created first and the DevOps got created second, right? And what I'm talking about, let's do this. Let's do a man on user ad. All right, so remember we have the syntax of a command is I have user add, or not user add, I have the command, and then I have an option, and then I have uh our argument. In our case, if I'm adding a user, I have to have user add, and then I have to have some type of name, some type of login. And in this case right here, I have options as well. So if we scroll down here, right, you can see that I could put in a comment. I can tell it what home directory to have. I can say when the account expires. I can make an account inactive. I can give it a GID. I can tell it what group to be a part of, and I can also tell it about the scale directory. So I don't know if they talk about this much in here, but I'm gonna talk about it. So if I clear, and if I CD over to etc scale and do a ls minus a, when you create a user, by default, the user is gonna get whatever is in this directory. So if I look at home DevOps, all right, I'm gonna do a ls minus a. Um, because they're probably already logged in, but by default, I got bash logout, bash profile, bash RC, and so forth. So I'm gonna create a user. I'm gonna say user add tam. Right, and now I'm gonna do a ls minus l. Let me back up. Let's do ls minus l on slash home, which should have gave me a new directory called Tam, owned by Tam as a user and owned by Tam as the group, and the same permissions as before, 700, right? And if I do a cat on Etsy password, let's do the last 5 lines. Well, let's do a tail dash in. Let's do the last 3 lines on Etsy password. You can see Tam is here, right? And because DevOps was 1001 as a user and as a group, just doing by default, it incremented Tam to be at 1002 as a user and 1002 as the group. And here is my user ID, my home directory, in which got created, and then my shell that I'm going to use. So if we did a ls minus l on slash home tam, uh, mm, sorry, I need to do a ls minus la. You can see that everything that's in the actual Etsy scale directory got created in here for Tam. Now, if I touch hello, right, and then let me clear my screen, and then and I make another user add Tam2. What do you think is going to be in Tam2's directory? You drop in the comments and tell me what you think is going to be in Tam2's directory now. Let's see. Hey, no guesses. Okay, so
Everything in Etsy scale, right?
everything in Etsy scale plus the new directory, that the new file I just created. So I created a new file called hello. So now hello is going to be in there too. So anything
Um,
I add to the Etsy scale directory is gonna be the default settings for my new user. So I could do touch hello 2, and then when I do user add tam3, and I do a ls on slash home. I should do a ls minus l a on slash home tam3. You see hello 2. So the Etsy scale directory is important to us because that allows us to set our users up. Like if we want to have our users to have default links or default files or what have you, I can set up my Etsy scale to look that, to look a certain way so that other users when they log in they'll see that, right? So that's that one. And then in here, they say minimize. If a user account is used by humans, it would generally have a secret password. I haven't set a password, but I will. And the user will prove that they're the actual authorized user when logging in. So what they're not saying in here is, oops, not that one. What they're not saying in here is, how does that work, right? And I won't go into in depth, but if I cd over to etc pam.d and I do a ls, there is the pam modules define how I get logged in. I don't want to go into this because it get kind of long, but I'm gonna go and look at system off. And these things mean something, right? These things mean something. Authorization, the account, they all mean something. Required, all of these mean something. Every last one of these. I'm gonna save this for another time. In fact, when I have an old video going over all of these as well. So let's look up PAM modules Fedora. All right. I like the Fedora docs as well. But let me see if they got the information that I want. Okay, so yeah, let me drop this for you. I hope I can type in the chat again. If not, I'll put it in the thing. Yeah, it's not letting me do it. I'll put it in Slack. So we're gonna call this PAM modules. And I'm gonna run through some stuff real quick, but I just want to have this that you can have that documentation as a reference. But um here they talk about um authorization. The module interface authenticates. The account is the module interface that verifies that access is allowed. The password is the module interface is used for changing the user password. And session says this module interface configures the module interface configures and manages the user session. The modules with this interface can also perform additional tasks like mounting a user home directory and making a user mailbox. So when you see this here, it goes through each one of these steps in order to say that you're actually able to log in, right? And each one of these required uh, uh, requisite, sufficient, all mean something. And on this page, they're going to break down what each one of these mean. Like here is required. Let me see if they go through and break it down some more right here. So required, the module result must be successful for authentication. Requisite, the module result must be successful for authentication to continue. Sufficient, meaning the module result is ignored if it fails. And then optional is the module result is ignored. A module flagged as optional only becomes necessary for successful authentication when no other module reference the interface, right? So the PAM modules are very useful if you're managing like a local system and you want to have access to how people log in, when they log in, and what they use when they log in, right? So that's what they get here. They don't. I don't think they really go into PAM module that much. All right. So in here, and this the reason why I brought that up, it says it will generally be assigned a secret password that the user will use to prove that they are the actual authorized user when they're logging in. But the PAM modules, just because I make you a password doesn't mean you automatically get access to my box. The PAM modules actually do that. All right. So it says for user accounts for are fundamental to system security. Every process on the system runs on a particular user. And I showed you the Etsy password file and those users. And let me go over there again. It's clear. And let's look at Etsy password. And you can see here, like I have um LP, which is this is for your printer. But you can see that LP has a SBIN no login, meaning that that user is not going to log in. Like you're not going to get a home directory and log in, and a home directory going to get mounted. That's not what happened. Those are what we call system users, right? So in here they start talking about okay, yeah, yeah. Every process running on the program, or every process running program on the system runs a particular user. Every file that has a particular user as its owner. File ownership helps the system enforce access control for users of the files. So let's drop down here. All right, super user. Now, when we were looking at our um our etc password, we have a super user that has an ID of 0, right? UID and a GID of 0, right? Meaning they are super user, and they have a shell, a default shell, and then root as the home directory / root. Um, so what does that mean? What does that super user mean? A super user sounds just like it sounds, right? I get access to everything, right? You never want to give somebody super user over your box, or root user over your box, unless you know is required, but normally you could do things as a regular user, except for install packages. But you can use the sudo command in order to install packages. You just have to be in the sudoers file, right? But there's a reason why we also don't get everybody access to is, suppose I gave Joan root access as like the root users. I gave Joan the root password. I gave uh Mr. Rico one. I gave Sasha the same password. When I go to try to figure out who screwed up the system or who did what, I can't track nobody down, right? Because they're all logging in as that user. So we want to be able to trace users on our systems. All right. So here, the super user account is for the administration. The name of the name of the super user is root. It has a UID of 0. We verified that. We've seen that. We also seen system accounts. I just showed you the LP with the with the SBIN no login for the actual shell that they had, right? And then the regular user, we created those TAM1, TAM2, TAM3. Now, here is when they get into ID, and I've shown you that, right? And notice one thing here. They're showing here where that SE Linux is turned on. So that's why you're able to get ID of the user ID of user 01, right? User 01. I know this is user 01 because we've seen it. And here's user 02. And then they got a ls minus file one. Well, what they're trying to show you here is in ls minus file one, we got a user and a group that owns user file one. But look at the permissions though. The permissions are 664, right? 664. So the user can read and write, the group can read and write, but anybody else that's not in the group or not that user, the only thing they can do is read. They can't write to that particular file. And then here we got 775, where we're saying that if you're the user and the group, you can do everything, but if you're other, you can only execute in that directory. And that's what they're showing you there. They're showing you the difference between to view the owner of a directory. They're saying do a ls minus ld on a dir. Now, I think I tried that before, so let's go back and check that out. So if I cd over to, let me do a ls minus capital F. So here I don't have directories, and I can look at this and tell I only have files and symbolic links, right? And the reason why I know that is because anything with the asterisk sign after it lets me know it's a symbolic link. So I'm gonna cd change directory over to etc, and I'm gonna do a ls minus f in here. So now anything with the slashes behind them is a directory. So they say I could do ls minus ld, and I'm gonna do it on yon.repo.d. All right. And so here it's showing me the directory. Let me see if I do it without the slash, would it still work? Yep, it still works. So here, I'm clear because it's at the bottom. Here we're seeing that it's a directory with 755, right? And it's owned by root user and the group, right? So user can do anything. The group can only do read and write. The other can only do read and write, right? So that's what they're showing you here with the ls minus ld. And then they say now if you want to view processes. Now here we go. Now we got to do a PS minus AU. So let's go back over here and do PS minus AU. And let's clear my screen because everything is running off. Let's pipe that over to head. And so we can only get the first 10 lines. All right. So as you can see here, I have some columns. All right. I have a user. I have a PID for that user. I have the percentage of CPU, memory, virtual memory. I forget what RSS stands for. I'll go back and check that out. TTY meaning like what uh what does TTY stand for again? Hold on, don't get me the line. I forget. Hold on, TTY Linux. I know it's a terminal, but I forget what it is, what the whole acronym is. Hold on. Here we go. TTY stands for teletypewriter. I could not remember that. Teletypewriter. There you go. All right. And then we have the stats, the start, the time, and then the command that's running, right? So let's go back over here. They explain all of this right here, right? So here we go. We have the username because they did a PS minus AU. We got the user that's running this. Two, they have, and they break it down right here. Oh, they're actually doing password. They're not doing this one. Let's go back and do this one. Let's go back to the man pages. Let's explain that to you. Let's go back to the man page and do a PS. A man on PS. Let me see if they got the columns broken down. Because that's what I want to show, the column breakdown. The process is to start. They don't have it. Let me look at start. It may not be capitalized in here. Mm-mm. Yeah, okay, here we go. So they got start time. They got what each one means. So let's go back and look at that. Um. All right. So here, this is the status of the actual process that's running. And when I say process, the command. The I think this is the time that it started. This is no, this is the time that it started. This is how I think how long it's been running. The we saw what TTY was and VSZ. So when you're not sure, I think that's virtual memory, but let's look it up. VSZ Linux. Um, do do do. Yeah, VSZ called VSZ is the PS command for virtual, the total amount of memory mapped by the process. This number is of limited interest since only part of the virtual memory is committed to the physical memory, right? So let's go back over here. Then we have RSS, and then we have percentage of memory and CPU and PID and a user. And they're gonna explain more of this when you do on a top command, because really that's when you start using it. Now, when is top gonna be useful for you? Top, um, it's gonna be useful for you when you do batch processing. All right. So in Linux, batch processing, and you do batch processing in Kubernetes too. Um, But really, when you start working on high performance computing, or you submitting jobs to a cluster, it's when you really start using the batch process. So let me scheduling priorities and so forth. So this is old, but I just want you to have this information, right? So like when you're like here when we start scheduling priorities, and later on, I want to say it's this. I want to say it's this chapter where you're going to do a nice, or some people call it niece or re-niece or so forth, when you're scheduling a task, when you don't want a task, like say you submit you started a batch process, right? Which could be a bash script, but you don't want it to use all of the memory. You may only want it to use 2 gigs of the memory. So you could have it set up where it could use just part of that, a part of that memory. So it's just little things like that 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 we can use for batch processing. But when you start getting into top, and there is let me get this out here. Linux, um, I want to say Linux processes. That Red Hat has some documentation. Um, I don't want to say that one is what I'm looking for, but this is all. But this is there is I have to look it up, where you can go in and start playing around with the health of a server, and start understanding, like, okay, a system crashed, why did it crash, like they're doing here, displaying a virtual memory, backtracing, and so forth. Let me look up what that should be. And if you got any questions, go ahead and put them inside of the chat. Rail 8, um top command. It may take me to what I wanna know. System monitoring tools, yeah. So here's what I think is a good thing for you all to just know, right? And I'll put this in the chat too, inside the Slack. System monitoring tools. You can see here where they go over PS minus AUX, um, how to use the top command, what does each one mean. These are things that I would study for a interview, because you'll get people that say, how do you kill stuff, how do you do this, um how do you set up dates, the date protocol, and you can see all of that here. Network time protocol, time zones. I like this because I can come here, and if I don't want to sit here online, I can download it as a PDF. That's Rail 6, but you can look it up for Rail 8. But it'll go through here, and it'll give you, like, I could click on each one of these and hop to it. Here we go, managing users and groups, and gaining privileges and console access. So, like I said before, normally when a new version of Red Hat comes out, I literally go through each one of these, and I would spend time, like a week every day, just make it a point to play with each one of these commands. So if it's chapter 6, I'm gonna go and figure out how to register a system with subscription manager or something like that. Like, I'm literally going through each one of these commands, just so I know how to use it and know what it is, and flag stuff in your PDF, so that way you know what to come back to with something that was fuzzy, right? All right, so that's that. Boom. All right, so here they're opening up Etsy password. So with Etsy password, they're just trying to show you how the file is laid out, which I went over. Here's the user. 2 was used to be the password, but now it's stored encrypted. Here is the UID, the GID, the comment is what it's called, or whatever you want to give that description of that user or account, the home directory, and the default shell when you log in. And so that's what they're describing in all of this right here. Then it talks about what is a group. Well, a group is a collection of users that need to share access to files, like I showed before when we did an ID on an ID-A on the what user was that? Student. we see that that user student is part of the groups as the group. I mean the student as a group, and then it's also part of the will group as well too, right? And so as they go through here, they're showing you how to break down the Etsy group file. So let's go and look at it. Group is the name of the group. We saw that X is the obsolete group password field. This field should always be X. Now here's another thing too, and I'll get to it in a minute. The GID number for the group, which is right here, and then the groups that that person is a part of. The list of users who are members of that group, right? Maybe a list of users. The primary and the supplementary groups are discussed later in this chapter, right? So here's another thing too. Suppose I wanted to, I'll keep bringing it up. Suppose I wanted to create a user, right? So here's a cheat. I could create a user by going down here. I got TAM3. I could do this. I can yank it, which is double yank. I can then do 4. I can come here and change this to 4. I know that it's 105 is the next one up, and 105 is the next one up, right? And then I can also come in here into the group and cheat, and then do 4 here, and then change this to a 5, right? And then I can go over to my home directory and then make a dir called tam4, and then own it with tam4 because the user and the group is already made for tam4 for tam4. Right, and I do it ls minus l. I have look, I should make it 700. I can go back and do that. tam4. Now we're gonna chmod it with 700 on tam4. Right, I'm change the permissions. We just do it ll. We'll see now it all looks the same, right? So now I have, what I've done is I created a user. If I do a ID-A on tam4, you can see now I have my UID, my GID, and the groups. And if I wanted to add tam4 to another group, I can go back in here. I can look for Will, and I can add tam4 here by putting in a comma and then doing tam4. And then now when I do an ID-A on tam4, I see, and now tam4 is part of that group. I did all of that manually. It's just really easier just to do user add tam6. And now when I do an ID-A on tam6, because tam has been created, you see I get the default things. But if you don't know, if you want to do it another way, you can also add it that way by just going through and adding it manually. Does this make sense? Is everybody keeping up okay? Yeah, I'm checking the comments. I'm assuming so. All right, so primary and supplementary groups. All right, so okay, cool. Yes. All right, makes sense. Okay, cool. All right, so every user has a primary group. For local users, this group is listed by their GID and Etsy password. So in other words, when we look at Etsy password, for my GID, you can see it's 1006 for TAM6, or TAM is 1002. And if I go look at group um, for TAM or any of them, you'll see 1002, 1003, 1004. Those are the primaries, right? And so then they get into by this. I need to get my charger. By default, this group will own the new files created by the user. So to prove that concept, let's go into let's su dash tam 6, and let's do it ls minus a, and let's add a L to that. All right. But now let's do touch um new file. And then let's do it ls minus L on new file. And you can see tam6 new file. You can see it's 664. And before, remember I told you, your UMask determines this. Your UMask is 002. Directories, when they get created, start off with 777. Files start off with 666, right? So when a directory gets created, it subtracts the subnet mask. So 777 minus 002. And so your subnet mask, your UMask is now 775. Yeah, yeah. Right. For directories. And then is that right? It may be O2. Yeah. 0002. Yep. And then on files is 666 minus 002. And so you should get 664, which lines up what we see here, right? For that user, right? 664. So let's make a directory. Make dir tam underscore 6. Oops. Something's catching. No, what are you doing? What's catching? No, what is that? What is that? We have gone awry. We have gone awry. Look at that. But anyway, I'm gonna do ls minus L on that directory. And as you can see here, it's 775, which is what we expected, right? Seven from zero, 7 from 0, and 7 from 2. I don't know why it just decided to run away from me. I don't know. Just to run away. You searched several different ways you couldn't get in it. Yeah. I think they're trying to pull it. So whoever has access to the 124 and that 134, you may want to mark them because they're trying to pull them. All right, so let me keep going here, and I have to figure that out. It's no big deal. All right. It turns out it says that group is used as the primary group for the user, and that user is is the only member of this user private group. It turns out that this helps make management of file permissions simpler. It says users can have supplementary groups, which we've seen. We saw that with the student was part of the will group, and we added TAM6 as part of the will group. And they said just do an ID. So that's the first part. All right, this part I'm going to leave on you all to do. Let's get into gaining super user access. All right. So basically, to become root, there are a couple of ways that you can do this. Oops. All right. So let's clear this and let's exit this. All right. And I'm going to exit here. So there's a couple of ways to become root, right? But you have to be a part of the sudoers file. So when I sudo su dash and type in student as my password, when I vi sudoers right here, and then I'm gonna type in student. Oh, they don't have it in this one. They probably got it under it. Let's go. I think they changed this. Let me double check. Let me vim sudoers.d. Let's see. They have 90. Or they may have it in lab sudo. So here they have the wheel group has all access, and here are the commands that wheel group has access to do to 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 do that they can run. And then let's look at Etsy 90 cloud. Oops, Sudoers cloud. Sorry. Come on. What am I missing? Oh, .d. Okay, so here's DevOps. DevOps can log in and not use and not have to type in a password. But because I'm a part of the wheel group as a student, back up here when I do that, right here, I can type in. I don't. Whenever I run these commands right here, anything in these paths right here, I don't have to type in a password, but anything else I do. So that's why when I as a user, um, let's go exit this. When I do sudo su dash, I have to type in the password. It's cached right now, but I will have to type in the password. But if I let me exit here, and then we'll go back up again. And then I'm gonna su dash to DevOps. Now DevOps doesn't have to type in a password because we saw that, right? We saw that in the file. We saw that in this file right here. Was this one? No, it's this one. That DevOps doesn't have to type a password. So I'm gonna yank this. Yank. Come on. There we go. And I'm gonna put TAM6 in here. And I'm gonna get rid of no password. And not TAM, but TAM6. Okay. And now I'm gonna exit. And I'm gonna exit one more time. All right. And exit one more time. All right. Now, who am I? I should be student. Now I'm gonna sudo su dash. And now I'm going to su dash to TAM6. Right? Now when TAM6 goes to sudo su dash, it should ask for a password, which I don't have set. So let's give TAM6 a password. Just gonna name it TAM6. I'm just gonna give it TAM6. Oh, it's asking for a current password. Oh, let me sudo. All right, so now when I sudo, let's see, who am I? Keep up with that. I'm student. Let's clear the screen. And let's sudo su dash. And then let's su dash to TAM6. I'm changing users. Now when TAM6 goes to sudo, it's gonna ask for a password because in that file, I told it to make sure that TAM gets a password that gets asked for. But if I come in here and type in no password, TAM6 will be able to log in with no password. All right, let me pause there. Let me get my my thing, my charger. And then in here it says, it talks about super user and whatever you're able to do. And then it talks about switching users, as I showed you before, how to switch users. And then it says running commands with the sudo. And we're gonna run some commands with sudo, and we're gonna do some interactive stuff. We went over the wheel group, but I'll go back over that stuff again. And then that will be done with that one. And now this will be the guided exercises that you can work through, right? And then the next one is managing local user accounts. So now we're gonna create a user like I did before, like I showed you, remove users and so forth. So let me get my charger. Any questions, go ahead and post them in the chat. And let's go from there. Let me back up, see where we're at. We are gaining super user access. We're gonna finish that off, and then we're gonna do managing accounts, and then managing local groups, and then managing passwords, and then the rest you all can do as a study, right? So back here, and give me about 2 minutes. Let me find my charger. I thought I pulled it out, but I guess I didn't. And let me pull up any questions and comments. Any questions and comments, please don't hesitate. 1 second. All right, I'm back. I didn't see any questions or comments in the chat, so let's keep going. All right. So next up is we're back at managing, no, we're at gaining super user access. Okay, so they have a new command that they're introducing to you. And this new command is user mod, right? So for example, when you want to sudo, or like they say sudo or su, let's go back up here and get you some context here. Saying here, in this case, users cannot log into the system well, as root directly with a password. SU cannot be used to get an interactive shell. One tool that can be used is Sudo, and that's what we've been using. It says, unlike SU, Sudo normally requires the user to enter the password for authentication, not the password for the user account they're trying to access. Just your username, not your username, but your password when you try to log into the system. It says that it says the users who use the sudo command run commands as root do not need to know the root password because you're in that sudo file. You've already gained super user access. Instead they use their own. Now, why does this matter? Okay, it matters because of this. If you go to var log messages, and I talked about this earlier, um, there is um there is logging that happens, right? You see that? You see how it's su to root, su to tam. You see how that got logged? Another place that gets logged too, in vim var log secure, right? So some sessions happen when we're doing these SUs and so forth. And you can look at see that it's PAM system D. You see that PAM keeps showing up. The PAM modules are important, right? On the Linux boxes. All right. So here they're saying additionally sudo can be configured to allow specific users to run any command. Well, we saw that, right? When we looked at sudo sudoers, I should say, .d, and then we looked at the lab sudo, we saw that there are certain commands that if you are a part of the wheel group that you can run, and they have those listed here, right? So that's one. And then the next day saying, for example, sudo is configured to allow user O1 to run the command user mod as root. User one could run the following command to lock or unlock an account. So basically, they have it locked down by user mod. So if we go over here and we say which user mod, user mod is user sbin mod. I mean user sbin user mod. So if I wanted to, let me use this up arrow, and then let's do. Well, no, let's do lab sudo. If I came in here, I could create. Well, tam is a group. Tam6 is a group. Remember. So I do percent tam6, and then I can say all equal to all, and then I'll do no password, and then I'll do user has been user mod, right? And then what I'll go back and do is I'll get rid of the user, and here 90, right? I'll get rid of that one. All right. So now by default, if I exit, I'm tam6 now. I'm gonna exit out of that, and then I'm gonna come back in. All right. So um by default, let me see. Can I shut down anything? Can I type shut down? Oh, I wonder. I think it may let me do it. Let's see. We're about to find out. See date. Let's look at var log. Oops. Can I cat var log messages? Well, let's tell. Maybe shut down. They will let me do shut down. Oops. Tell. I get permission denied. Okay, that's fine. But I should be able to do chmod on something. I mean, user mod. That's what I did. Okay, I get that. New login shell for user account. So let's do user mod dash s, and then we can do, man, hold on, let's make sure we do it right. User mod, and let's look up the dash s. I'm gonna change the shell on a user. So the name of the user's new shell login. All right, cool. So let's change tam4 user mod dash s, and let's make it I wonder, do I have a C shell installed? I don't know. About to find it on tam4. Oh, it shut down. It ran in the background and shut it down. Oh no, it didn't. Cool. It didn't shut it down. Cool. I was like, oh, it shut it down. Okay, it says permission denied, cannot lock Etsy password. Try again. Oh, let me see. Can I type sudo? Can I do that? Okay, because I had to type sudo for that. All right, cool. Now when I go look at, let's go look at Etsy password. tam4 got changed to CSH. But what I was actually showing you is inside of this Etsy sudoers file .d 90. Oh, it wasn't 90. It's lab. What I show here is that with no password um for the login, and these are the commands I can run with tam6. So I was able to mod tam6 as a user, was able to mod tam4's login shell. Did that make sense to everybody? And but I can give specific commands that user can run. But remember, this TAM6 is a group. So if you're a part of TAM6, like just like this wheel group, if you're a part of that group, I can give student no password access to the lab and demo grading scripts and so forth, right? So that I can give this user what I want that user to have. As long as they're a part of that group. So this percent sign lets me know it's part of a group. Now, where does this get more defined at? If you go into Etsy Sudoers, it gives you a little bit more insight, right? So if we're in here, let me show you where it starts doing groups right here. So see, I have a root user. But it says allow all members of the sys group to run networking. So if I want to allow something on a group of people, right? That or a group, and I got several people part of the group, I can run it on sys on whatever the name of the group is. But if I just want to run it on this user, I can run it on that user. And then here it says allow people in the wheel group to run all commands. Right? Same thing without a password. This is with a password, without a password. Now, if I want to come down here, allow the members of the users group, this users is a group, and these are the commands that they can run, but they got to pass. It's going to take a password for them as well, too. All right. And here's cloud user and so forth. All right. All right. So the next one, um, so here, user mod. So let's go back and do a man on user mod. So here I can append a comment to the user inside of basically of Etsy password. I can add a comment. I could change their directory. I could change their expiration date, but that the capital dash L lets me lock the user out. So now what it does is it puts an exclamation point in front of the encrypted password, effectively disabling the password. You can't use this option with a dash P or dash U. So now let's do something that we haven't done before. So let's do a user mod dash L, capital L on TAM fix. Now when we go look at Etsy password, should see an exclamation point. Right? Oh, here it is. Don't have it in there. Maybe in the group. Let's go look at the group file. Thought it should be there in the password, but what? Oh, did I miss my exclamation? Let's see. Did I miss it? No. TM6 is there. Let's see where they say it should be at. Uh, mm, 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 mm. I don't see it. I thought it went on the password. Did I give TM6? I gave TM6 a password. You know what? I know where it's at. I know where it's at. G Shadow. Yep, see? No, that one's got an exclamation point too. And that one. Let's see. Let's exit. And SU dash TAM 6. I typed in the password. It's not letting me in. Yep. Student. Now we need to find out all the lock. Let's see if it's locked. Use a mod. We should be able to get a list of locked accounts. I forget the command to give me a list of locked accounts. Lock a user password that puts an exclamation in front of the encrypted password, effectively disabling them. But I want to get a list of locked accounts. And I forget what that is off the top of my head. All right, let's go here. Rel list of locked accounts. Yeah, locked. That's something. I forget what it is. No. Mm, I don't want a cat. There's a way that you can get a list of locked accounts. Mm-mm-mm. Oh, maybe it's a shadow that I need to look at, but we'll go back there. Oh yeah, here it is. Password dash L. I couldn't remember for nothing. All right. So password dash L on TAM6. Locking password for user TAM. Password success. So let's do a password dash L on TAM4. Oh yeah, I locked it. That's what that is. I just locked it. And then let me go back here. And then it says checking to see if the user account is locked. It's the dash S, capital S. So let's do a password dash capital S on TAM4. There you go. LK, the alternate authentication scheme, and L6. Yep. So, okay, yep. So here you can see that TAM6 is locked. TAM4, I don't think it's locked. So let's go back over here and check it out. Dash S, see, LK is password locked. NP is no password, and PS is password set. So let's go back to our stuff. We have a password locked. The LK on this one, I don't think TAM4 has a password, so it didn't lock anything. And I give you this too if you want to take a look at it. And then to unlock password dash U. So let's do a password dash U on TAM6. And then let's do a capital S on the status. All right, the password is set, it's SHA encrypted, and it's unlocked. And it also gives me more information about it. And you can see PS is right there as well too, where they were talking about PS's password is set, and then LK was password was locked. Cool. Okay, cool. You got in, right? And so here they're saying another method. We did password. Another method is locking it, right? So user mod lock that particular user using the capital L, and then using the capital S to check the status. So they're showing you two different ways you can lock and check it. And so they check the XC shadow, not G shadow. So let's go back. Let's go back and lock TAM again. Oh, it's capital L, lowercase L, lowercase L. All right, so now let's look at shadow. There it is. That's what I was looking for. What it should have done, what I'm thinking it should have, yeah, it should have, yeah, placed an exclamation point in front of the password so that it's locked. And so now when we go do a password dash S on TAM6, so it shows me that it's locked. Now I'm going to unlock it with a dash U, and then we're going to do a status. And then now we're going to go back and look at the shadow file. And you can see the exclamation points are gone. You see that? Y'all see the difference there? So let's do it one more time. All right, so password dash um that's unlocked, right? So now let's lock her. Lock her out. Now let's look at Etsy shadow. Well, one G shadow, it's just shadow. And you can see the 2 exclamation points are there, right? And now we're gonna unlock it with the here. And then when we go back and look at the shadow file, the 2 exclamation points are gone. So unlock, check the status, and then lock it, check the status, and then you can unlock it. And you can do that with the password command, or you can use user mod. So let's see, let's check the status now. Capital S on TAM6. It's not locked. So now if we do a user mod dash L on TAM6, and then we do a use password dash S TAM6, we see that it's locked. And we verify that lock with, we could just do a tail dash N2 on ET shadow. And you can see that they got the exclamation point in front of that, right? And notice that the password did 2 exclamation point, and user mod only did 1. And now when I go to unlock it, right? And then I do a status. And then when I do my tail, you can see that the exclamation point is gone from the front, right? Right here. Right? So that's how you unlock and lock a user. Here, I showed you the sudo, the tail on var log secure, seeing who did what and whatnot. Now, here they're saying on Rails 7 and 8, all members of the wheel group can use the sudo command as any user, including root. The user is prompted for their own password. This is a change from Rails 6 and earlier, where members who were a part of the wheel group did not get administrative access by default. And you can find this information out by also reading the change log, or what's new inside of the operating system. And it talks about the difference between Rails 6 and Rails 7. Now we're talking about getting interactive, right? So when you pass the dash I, it makes it interactive. So if I did a clear and then a man on sudo, right? Let's see, it's 10 o'clock there, huh? I gotta finish up. If I do a man on sudo, and I look for the dash I, right? So it says run the shell specified by the target user password database. This means that the login specific resource file, such as profile, bash, or bash profile, or .login, will be read by the shell. All right. So here they're showing you how to be interactive. So if I'm a regular user and I do sudo dash I, it say enter the password for the user. Right. So let's go here and let's do password That's you on tab 6 because I'm making sure that's unlocked. And then when I do sudo dash I, oh, let me go to tab 6. Hold on. Su dash tab 6 and then sudo dash I. And now it wants me to put in a password. Oh, look at that. Sorry, user tab 6 is not allowed to execute bin bash as root on this workstation. Y'all remember why? You remember that? What I set back there in the file? So etc sudoers sudoers.d sudoers is .d I think it was lab sudo. This right here. We'll delete that. That's what prevented me. So you know it's working. So su dash tam 6 and sudo dash I. I'm not a part of the sudoers file, which is fine. I need to be a part of the sudoers file in order to do that. And that's what they're trying to. That's what they was trying to show. So let's go add. Let's go add tam 6 to it. O dash D, and then let's add it to 90. Boom, and then let's make this tam 6. And then we will get rid of no password because we want to show the interaction and interactive of password. So su dash tam 6 sudo dash I tam 6. Oops. Was that right? Yeah, I didn't do sudo dash I. Oh, you didn't like me. Oh, I guess I think I had typed in my password before, so it took it as is, which is fine. I don't think I'm a part of the wheel group. We'll double check it. Let's check it. And let's look up wheel. Yeah, see, I'm not a part of the wheel group. 10-4 is. It's because I had already typed in the password, so it took it as is. All right, here we went through this already. They're showing here. Let's back up here. The main config file sudo for sudo is sudoers, right? And here they're showing you could be a part of the wheel group and then have them put in all of the commands and so forth. So here, this line is the user or the group to whom the rule applies. A percent specifies this group and the group as well. The all specifies that on any host that might have this file will can run any command. The final all specifies uh specifies that will can run the commands of any user on the system. By default, the sudoers also includes contents of the sudoers.d file, right? And so in the sudoers.d file, to enable sudo for user one, which is different than what they were having before, you create a user etc sudoers user one and then put in the following contents. Now, if you want it to be a group, they broke it out to a group, right? You could see like they each have their own individual file. And then if you want Ansible to have access with no password, here you would specify a user, and this will be a system user. This is not a does Ansible need a home directory? Well, this may be a user, but in real life, Ansible just uses SSH keys to log in. It's not they do create a user, do you? Yeah. Yeah, because you exchange your SSH keys. Yep. So it is a regular user. And then here they're actually showing For example, the AMI rail on Amazon Marketplace ships with the root and EC2 user EC2 users locked. Their password locked. The EC2 user account is set up to allow remote interactive access through SSH authentication. The user EC2 user can also run any command as root without a password because the last line of the AMI file, sudo file, allows this right here, right? So then they get it. They go into here the sudo su dash used instead of su sudo dash I. Both commands work. Both are some subtle differences though. The sudo su dash command sets up the root environment. In other words, you take the root environment with you. Um, exactly like a normal login because su dash command ignores the settings made by sudo. And it says sudo dash I command actually set up some details of the root user's environment differently than a normal login. It says, for example, the path environment variable uh, is slightly different, right? So here they're saying secure path would be this versus and replaces it with the following two lines with here and here, right? So let's back up. You can use sudo dash I to behave more like su dash by editing the sudoers file with visu sudo, right? So they're talking this visu sudo, all right? So this is what the root user has its commands and so forth, right? And that's another way to edit the visual sudoers file. And then here they're saying you can edit and put in these tools. For most purposes, this is not a major difference. However, for consistency of path settings on some systems, this will be the default Etsy sudoers, right? So, but most people I ever seen always use this one here. It's rare that I've seen people use this one. And then they have the man pages. Remember, you type in the one, it's gonna get you a different man page than what you when you type in a two or something like that. And so let's clear and do a man dash K on sudo. Oh, nothing. How about on su? Interesting. Mm. And they'll find it. The man dash K gives me ability to search the man files for different different man pages. So here like sudoers. Let me do a man on sudoers. Man dash K on sudoers. They don't have nothing. Interesting. Let's do CPU. Nothing. How about top? Probably don't pull back much. I wonder if all the document is all the docs are installed. So if I cd over to user share doc, this is where you find documentation for files for your commands, I should say. So if I cd over to let's go xz, here's some other documents. So let's do a man dash k on xz. I don't think it's got anything else. Yeah, I don't know why it's not coming up with the man pages for it. Like it can't find the man pages. That's interesting. Like something is missing. This would be a guided exercise, and then we get into local accounts. I didn't get a chance to do all the local accounts, but we really went through it. The only thing here is using the user mod command where we're gonna add a comment. I changed the shell. We unlocked an account. We locked an account. Um, and they walk you through user add. Let's do user del. Um, let's do this. Let's exit and let's exit. And then let's do user del -r tam6. So what that did was that recursively got rid of my home directory for tam6. You see that's gone. If I do a tel-n5 on Etsy group, tam6 is gone. And if I do a Etsy on password, if I do a tail on that, you see tam6 is gone. So it recursively got rid of that. Now, if I didn't use the recurse, let's just user del tam4, and if I do a Etsy password there, you see tam4 is gone. If I do it on the group, you see the group is gone. But if I do a ls on home, you see my home directory is there. So that's what the -r does. It removes the home directory for me, and all the way down. So let's see. Warning: do not use it when a user is removed. User del without the R option, um, option specified will have files that are owned by the user, but an unassigned user ID. Right. So it just be out there just with no ID or nothing like that. Just be dangling. All right. All right, now it says setting passwords. I showed you that. I set the password for TAM6 by using password TAM6 as as the root user. If I did it as me and it wasn't set, it was going to look for default password which wasn't set. Then the UID ranges they talk about here, and which is important, right? Let me blow that up some here. UID 0, UID 1 to 200 is for systems. Users assigned statically to the system processed by Red Hat. And then 201 to 999, a system user used by the system process that they do not own files on the file system, right? They're typically assigned dynamically by available pool when the software is installed. If a software installs, it looks for the next available um, UID in order to create that user on that system, but in this range. And then anything 1,000 above is regular users. Here they talk about prior to Rails 7, the convention was to use was the UID was 1 to 499. Remember I told you about 500. And we looked into the logins.def, we see that it starts at 1,000 for the users and 1,000 for the group, right? And then they go into managing users with your lab. Let's go to table of contents. Managing users with the lab. And then we got managing group accounts and managing passwords. So we'll resume with these two next week. I don't think we got much to do because we can go through group del, remove the group. I showed you how to find out whether a user is part of multiple groups. And that's it. Let's just knock this out. User del. All right. So group del. So we want to remove a group, right? So we can do a cat on Etsy group, and we can say let's remove tam3. So group del tam3. And notice I'm root when I do this. See, cannot remove a primary group of a user. Keep game, right? Um, this removes groups. You cannot remove a group if it is the primary group of an existing user. So what I would have to do is probably add tam3 to a group. So let's go do that. Let's go add tam3 to a group. Let me see. I may not still be able to do it because it may be a primary. But let's do user del tam3. Yep. As long as that is the primary group of that user, you can't remove it. Even if you made it a sub, even if you added it to another group, but that when you do that, it's a supplementary group. So you have to change group membership. And that's what they're showing here. So here I'm changing the group membership where I want to change the user's primary group. So I'm gonna use a mod and change TAM3 to be the primary group to be TAM2. So user mod, and if you don't know, you can do a man on it, but dash G. Let's do TAM2, right? Because that's the group that I wanted to be a part of, and TAM3, right? So now when I do an ID-A on TAM3, I see now that my groups that I'm a part of, I see I'm TAM3. Here's my UID, but notice that my GID is now TAM2, and here are the other groups that I'm part of, right? But check it, when I do my user del of TAM3, I can do that now because my user TAM3 primary group has changed, which allowed me to get rid of that group. Now here they're showing a user mod -AG. So we're gonna man user mod A, meaning append, and then capital G, here is groups. A list of supplementary groups. I want to add that to be a supplementary group, not a primary group, but a supplementary group. So basically I'm saying user mod, add user3 as user3 to this group '01, but it's a supplementary group of that. All right. And they show you that. So let's go back. Oops. Since I cheated, let's go back to group. Let's get rid of TAM3 there. And now we want to do user mod -A, lowercase a, capital G, will, and then TAM3. Now when I cat XC group and grep for will, what do I see? What do I see? I see TAM3 got added back, right? I can go and do the same thing here for TAM2, and then I can do a grep on will, and you'll see TAM2 got added as a supplementary group, not my primary group. Your primary group, when you want to change the primary group, you come here, user mod -G, lowercase g, capital G, lowercase g, primary, supplementary, capital G. That's what you want to be on the lookout for. And then you go in here is a guided exercise. Here we're managing passwords. I'll go into all of this next week because it's not that long. It's not that hard. I just want to spend some time on it so you understand it. And I know it's getting late over there on the East Coast. I'm going to start recording.